top 10 NFL draft busts. What's worse than never being drafted? Getting selected at the top with all the hype, the money, and the promise, and then watching your career implode. Today, we're counting down the 10 athletes who carried massive expectations and left behind heartbreaking, expensive lessons for the franchises that bet everything on them. These are the picks that changed franchises, ruined front office reputations, and, just as importantly, changed lives. Stick around. The farther down we go, the worse the stories get. Hit subscribe if you love long-form sports drama. Let's go. Number 10. Tim Couch, 1999. Tim Couch went number 1 overall in 1999, the face of the Browns reboot. Coming out of Kentucky, he had the arm, the college production, and the narrative every rebuilding team wants. But the Browns he walked into were an expansion mess. Porous line play, limited weapons, and organizational instability. Couch spent 5 NFL seasons trying to grow into a quarterback who had to learn behind a bad roster. He finished his career with 11,131 passing yards, 64 touchdowns, and 67 interceptions. Numbers that reflect flashes, but not franchise-saving performance. Couch's story is the textbook example of how a team context can flatten a prospect's promise. So, was Couch a total wash? Not exactly. He had traits, but sometimes traits are enough when everything around you is falling apart. Coming up, a quarterback taken 3rd overall who played just 17 starts in 4 seasons. You'll be shocked by how little he produced. Number 9. Achilles Smith, 1999. Achilles Smith, 3rd overall, 1999, was a boom or bust pick Cincinnati rolled the dice on. Athletic, big-armed, and coming off a strong season at Oregon, he was supposed to be their franchise quarterback. Smith started only 17 games across 4 seasons, completed under half his passes in the NFL, and finished with 5 touchdown passes and 13 interceptions. The Bengals gave up draft capital to move up and get him, and the investment returned almost nothing on the field. Achilles' arc is a cautionary tale about limited college tape, fast promotion, and a quarterback who never adjusted to pro speed. Alright, 2 1999 picks in the list already. But the next entry belongs to a Heisman winner whose road from electric college superstar to short troubled NFL stint reads like a Hollywood cautionary tale. Number 8. Johnny Manziel, 2014. Johnny Football Manziel, 22nd overall, 2014, arrived with instant star power, a Heisman Trophy, highlight reel improvisation, and endless media attention. But the NFL is a different animal. In 2 seasons with Cleveland, Manziel threw for 1,675 yards with 7 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, and struggled to earn consistent coaching trust. Off-field problems and lapses in professional preparation undermined his opportunity. He was released after 2 seasons and bounced through alternative leagues afterward. The Manziel story is about how college stardom and fame sometimes collide badly with pro demands and personal stability. From party culture narratives to one of the single biggest draft disasters in pure failure to prepare coming up. A 1st overall pick who had an arm like a cannon but could never put it together. Number 7. JaMarcus Russell, 2007. JaMarcus Russell, number 1 overall, 2007, had the physical profile every team drooled over: size, arm strength, and upside. The Raiders signed him to a massive rookie contract under the old pre-CBA system. Reports show roughly a $61 million deal with about $32 million guaranteed. But prospects also need preparation, work ethic, and the ability to absorb complex pro systems. In Oakland, Russell struggled with conditioning, the playbook, and consistency. Over 3 seasons, he finished with 18 touchdowns, 23 interceptions, and a 52.1% completion rate, ultimately cut after failing to meet expectations. That guaranteed money and early investment turned one of the draft's boldest gambles into a cautionary tale about talent without accountability. A huge contract, a huge arm, and a huge flop. Next, a player whose pre-draft hype was built on a Sports Illustrated cover and the two-and-done career that followed. Number 6. Tony Mandarich, 1989. Tony Mandarich, number 2 overall, 1989, was plastered on magazine covers as the incredible bulk and projected as a franchise offensive tackle. Green Bay thought they had landed a generational blocker. Mandarich never lived up to the expectations. He played 6 NFL seasons, never made the Pro Bowl, and later admitted to using steroids in college and faking a drug test before a major college bowl game. The fallout was made worse by the fact that in the same draft, 3 future Hall of Famers were selected around him: Troy Aikman, Barry Sanders, Derek Thomas, Deion Sanders among the top 5 picks, which only magnified the miss. Mandarich's story is as much about the perils of hype and misplaced medical optimism as it is about talent evaluation. From performance-enhancing confessions to a rookie who became the human symbol of a compare and contrast nightmare, our next pick is the yardstick people use to measure what could have been. Number 5, Ryan Leaf, 1998. Ryan Leaf, number 2 overall, 1998, was drafted the same year Peyton Manning went first overall. The comparison is brutal, and the gap couldn't be wider in hindsight. Leaf finished his NFL career with 14 touchdown passes and 36 interceptions, and his damaging public meltdown tantrums, bad media moments, and documented struggles with substance use and the law after football turned a failed career into a tragic public downfall. He later served time and has since worked through rehab and recovery programs. His story is a stark look at how pressure, lack of preparation, and personal demons can spiral out of control. 2 quarterbacks on this list who collapsed under pressure. But next, we move to a player who tried as hard as anyone and still paid the price for bad organizational timing. Number 4, David Carr, 2002. David Carr, number 1 overall, 2002, was the Texans' first ever draft pick in the face of a brand new franchise. Carr worked, practiced, and fought for every inch, but the Texans were not ready. Carr was sacked a record 76 times in his rookie season, 2002, the most ever in a single NFL season, and endured relentless pressure over his early years that changed his mechanics and confidence. He went on to have a long journeyman career as a backup and mentor, but his early years are an indictment of bad team construction. Sometimes the context, not the player, wrecks a prospect's trajectory. If sacks can break a quarterback's body and psyche, injuries can shatter a receiver's career. Up next, one of the most crushing examples of talent derailed by the body. Number 3, Charles Rogers, 2003. Charles Rogers, number 2 overall, 2003, arrived in Detroit as the most polished receiver in the draft class. Size, instincts, and hands. He looked like the clear choice to become a number 1 target. But Rogers' pro career was repeatedly interrupted by injury. He broke his clavicle early in his rookie year, re-injured it the following season, and suffered multiple setbacks that prevented him from staying on the field. On top of injuries, he had suspensions for violating the league's substance policies. The result? 36 career catches and 4 touchdowns before the Lions cut him, and the idea of what might have been became heartbreaking for fans. Injury and temptation combined to wreck a Hall of Fame projected career. But sometimes, the most damaging busts are the ones who were simply only ordinary when everyone expected greatness. Number 2, Reggie Bush, 2006. Reggie Bush, number 2 overall, 2006, is an unusual inclusion because he wasn't a total flop. He changed games in college, won the Heisman, and arrived in New Orleans amid massive excitement. The Saints even traded up heavily to pick him. In the NFL, Bush had a productive career, over 5,000 rushing yards, multiple Pro Bowl nods, and a Super Bowl ring. But he never became the perennial superstar many expected when the Saints gave up assets to move up. His pro career is better described as very good, but not historic, which makes him rank here, a disappointment measured against astronomical pre-draft expectations. Additionally, his Heisman Trophy was vacated in 2010 amid NCAA findings, and later, in 2024, the Heisman Trust moved to reinstate the trophy, a postscript that complicates his legacy. Sometimes, the difference between bust and disappointment is just expectations, but our top bust is the one that still keeps analysts up at night. Number 1, Vince Young, 2006. Vince Young, number 3 overall, 2006, is the all-time what if. At Texas, he was a legend, Rose Bowl hero, national champion, and electric dual-threat quarterback. Young arrived with physical gifts the NFL covets: arm strength, mobility, and championship experience. He produced big moments early and even led Tennessee to playoff success, but the grind of NFL complexity and preparation exposed limitations. Across his NFL career, Young finished with 46 passing touchdowns and 51 interceptions. Off the field, he faced emotional and mental health concerns, including a 2008 episode that prompted team and law enforcement involvement and public concern. Young's narrative combines enormous physical gifts with inconsistency, a difficult coaching relationship, and a sense that talent alone couldn't carry him to the Hall of Fame. There it is, the pick that fuels endless what-if debates. He could have rewritten a franchise's history. Instead, he became the most poignant almost in draft lore. The human cost. These stories are more than stat lines and draft positions. They're about people who built identities around sport, then had that identity implode under a public microscope. Addiction, mental health struggles, injuries, chronic pain, and public ridicule are recurring themes. Ryan Leaf spiraled into legal trouble and addiction after his brief NFL career, spending time in prison before working on recovery. JaMarcus Russell earned millions, then lost both public goodwill and the career he was promised. His post-NFL life contains chapters of regret and attempts at comeback. David Carr endured brutal physical punishment that altered the rest of his career. He's now often referenced when teams evaluate offensive line priorities. These aren't villains, they're cautionary human stories. The label bust often ignores the context: poor coaching, insufficient protection, bad medical care, and lack of support systems. So how do organizations avoid this? And how do we judge prospects more fairly? That's where the ripple effects come in. The ripple effect. A single high draft miss changes draft strategies, salary allocation, and fan trust. Teams that reach for ceiling players or fall for hype pay for it with lost picks and crushed timelines. Examples: Detroit's gamble on Charles Rodgers cost a chance to build around more reliable contributors. Oakland's investment in JaMarcus Russell added to years of instability. Cleveland's repeated quarterback misses, from Tim Couch's era to later attempts, created a long-term search for stability. But the problem isn't only draft evaluation, it's psychology. Players who've been winners their whole lives suddenly meet real failure, and very few are coached how to cope. The psychology of busting. Why do top picks fail? Expectation shock, instantaneous pressure to perform, poor situational fit, and lack of incremental failure experience. Some prospects dominated at lower levels because they were physically superior. When that advantage evaporates, they must adapt mentally and tactically. With the right environment, even talented players fold under the weight of sudden fame and guaranteed money. So what should fans and front offices do differently? Recruit smarter, protect prospects, and remember drafting is prediction, not prophecy. Draft busts remind us the NFL is a brutal filter. Talent is one piece, but environment, health, preparation, and support matter as much. These 10 players didn't just fail in many cases, they were failed by systems around them. If you enjoyed this deep dive, like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments which pick surprised you the most, or which player you think deserves a second look in history.